Reproductive cycles in vertebrates. Ovarian cycle. Let us first understand what is reproduction. Reproduction is the process by which new organisms are generated. It is the mechanism of species continuation. Types of reproduction. Reproduction process can be divided into two types. First one is asexual reproduction and the second one is sexual reproduction. We will first understand what is asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is a mode of reproduction by which offsprings arise from a single parent and inherit the genes of that parent only. Asexual reproduction is the primary form of reproduction for single cell organisms such as archaea, bacteria and protists. Many plants and fungi reproduce asexually as well. Next one is sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction involves specialized reproductive cells or gametes. These cells are haploid and are usually produced by meiosis. The male cell is called a sperm. It is smaller than the female cell, that is the egg, and it is motile, means it can move. The egg is larger than the sperm. It is non-motile and it carries nutrients to sustain the embryo until it can feed or absorb nutrition from the mother. The gametes are produced in the gonads or reproductive organs. The male organs are the testes and the female organs are called the ovaries. Either sex may have accessory sex organs such as the penis or the vagina. The accessory sex organs are usually involved in the mating process itself. Sexual reproduction involves fertilization, the union of gametes to form a zygote. Sexual reproduction can be further divided into three types, that is biparental, parthenogenesis and hermaphroditism. Let us have a look at them one by one. First, that is biparental reproduction. It is also known as dioecious reproduction, is more familiar type of reproduction. In this type of reproduction, there are two parents, one male and the other female. Dioecious reproduction has the greatest genetic variability among offspring, but the organisms must find mates. Second pattern is known as parthenogenesis, where a viable offspring is produced by the female without mating or fertilization. Sometimes it is even misunderstood as asexual reproduction, but it does not meet the strict definition of asexual reproduction as the sex organs are used to produce the egg. Parthenogenesis can be further divided into two forms. First, that is amniotic parthenogenesis, and second, that is meiotic parthenogenesis. Amniotic parthenogenesis. Where no meiosis occurs, eggs are formed by mitosis and offsprings is the clone of the parent. Second, that is meiotic parthenogenesis. In this case, egg is produced via meiosis and sperm do not fuse genetic material. As a result, the offspring is haploid. Crossing over usually results in some genetic diversity and mating is not required at all. A third pattern of sexual reproduction is known as hermaphroditism. This is the monoecious pattern. The hermaphrodite possesses both male and female organs and in some cases they may fertilize itself. Sexual reproduction has three main forms: oviparous, ovoviviparous and viviparous. First type is oviparous, where internal or external fertilization occurs. Development in the egg in the environment with or without involvement of any parental care. For example, fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds and mammals. Second type is ovoviviparous. Here, internal fertilization occurs and development in the egg within the female body. Egg hatches within the body just prior to birth. For example, fish, reptiles. Third type is viviparous, where internal fertilization occurs and young one develops internally and young receive nourishment from mother via placenta, from surface of uterine wall, via specialized structures or via production of excess eggs. Examples include elasmobranchs, amphibians, reptiles and mammals. Now, we will see the process of fertilization in vertebrates, that is from fish to mammals. In most species of bony fish, fertilization is external. Thousands of eggs are fertilized, but only a few individuals grow to maturity, whereas in most species of cartilaginous fish, fertilization is internal, where development of young is viviparous and it gives birth to a few well developed offsprings. In amphibians, mostly external fertilization is seen. Eggs of most of the species develop in water with some interesting exceptions. Male carries tadpoles on his back. Froglets develop in brood pouches. Female carries developing larvae on her back. Male holds developing froglets in his vocal pouch. In reptiles, amniotic eggs are seen where extra-embryonic membranes are found, which is suitable for adaptation for life on land. Most oviparous reptiles lay eggs and abandon them by secreting leathery shell on egg. In birds also, amniotic eggs are seen where extra-embryonic membranes are found, making it suitable for survival for terrestrial life. Generally, all birds practice internal fertilization where they have hard calcareous shell on egg. As birds are endotherms, they need to incubate the eggs to keep them warm. In mammals, there are three types. First one is monotremes. They are oviparous and they lay eggs. Second is marsupials. They are viviparous and they give birth to incompletely developed fetuses and attains the maturity in mother's pouch. Third is placentals. They are viviparous. They retain the young one in uterus for a long period of development and it gets the nourishment by placenta from mother's blood. Now, we will see what are reproductive cycles in vertebrates. Sexual reproduction in most species is regulated by regular endocrine changes or cycles in the female. These cycles begin postnatally, function for variable times and can then decrease or cease entirely. There are a number of different species specific female hormonal cycles which can regulate reproduction. Female reproductive cycles involve periodic release of a mature ovum through ovulation. Female reproductive cycles are subject to cyclic changes in reproductive activity. There are two types of reproductive cycles in vertebrates, estrus and menstrual. First, let us understand what is estrus cycle. Estrus word is originally derived from Latin word oestrus, that is sexual desire. Estrus cycle comprises of recurring physiologic changes that are induced by reproductive hormones, in most mammalian placental females. These cycles start after puberty in sexually mature females and are interrupted by estrus phases or pregnancies and continue till death. Major difference between estrus and menstruation is that during estrus cycle, reabsorption of the endometrium takes place if conception does not occur during that cycle. Another distinct feature of estrus is that animals are sexually active during the estrus phase of their cycle, also called as heat period. The timing of estrus is coordinated with seasonal availability of food and other circumstances such as migration, predation, etc. The purpose is to maximize the offspring's chances of survival. Some species are able to modify their estrus timing in response to external conditions. Now, we will see the phases of estrus cycle. There are 4 phases, that is proestrus, estrus, metaestrus and diestrus. In proestrus, one or several follicles of the ovary starts growing and their number is specific for the species. This phase lasts for 1 day to 3 weeks depending on the species. Under the influence of estrogen, the lining in the endometrium of uterus starts developing. Some animals may experience vaginal secretions that could be bloody. Females in this phase are not yet sexually receptive. Estrus refers to the phase when the female is sexually receptive, which is also known as heat period. Gonadotropic hormones regulate ovarian follicles maturation and estrogen secretions too exert its effect in making female sexually receptive. In metaestrus phase, the signs of estrogen stimulation subside and the corpus luteum formation starts. The uterine lining also begins to develop during this stage. Diestrus is a distinct feature of the activity of the corpus luteum, which produces progesterone. In absence of pregnancy, the diestrus phase, also termed as pseudopregnancy, terminates with the regression of the corpus luteum. The uterine lining is not shedded here, but generally it gets reorganized for the next cycle. Anestrus refers to the phase when sexual cycle ceases. Depending upon the frequency of estrus cycles, it can be categorized into monoestrus, diestrus and polyestrus. First, monoestrus types. These types of animals have only one breeding season, mostly in spring, to allow the growth of the offspring. The examples are bears, foxes, wolves, etc. Second, that is diestrus types. Here, the animals possess 2 breeding seasons. Example is dog. Third, that is polyestrus types. This type of the animals possess more than 2 breeding seasons. The examples include cats, cows and domestic pigs. Now, we will see what is menstrual cycle. Menstrual cycle is the series of cyclic changes that occurs in the uterus and ovary for the purpose of sexual reproduction. It is generally seen in female humans and female primates. Length of the cycle in humans varies between 25 to 35 days with an average of 28 days, and each cycle can be divided into 2 cycles with different phases. There are 2 types of cycle. One is ovarian cycle and the second is uterine cycle. First, ovarian cycle describes the changes that occurs in the ovarian follicles. The production and secretion of pituitary gonadotropins are controlled by cyclic follicular events. Ovarian cycle consists of three different phases: follicular phase, ovulation and luteal phase. Follicular phase is the first part of the ovarian cycle. Follicles secrete higher amounts of estrogen, leading to thickening of uterine endometrium, and suppresses luteinizing hormone, that is LH, from pituitary gland. At the end of this phase, ovulation occurs. Ovulation is the second phase of the ovarian cycle. When the ovum is nearly matured, estrogen reaches at above threshold level, and in turn it stimulates the production of LH. LH concentration matures the ovum and weakens the ovarian follicular wall. Finally, ovum goes into the fallopian tube from the ovary. Luteal phase is the final stage of ovarian cycle. During this phase, FSH and LH causes the formation of corpus luteum, which produces progesterone. Higher levels of estrogen and progesterone suppresses the production of FSH and LH that corpus luteum requires to maintain itself. Falling of progesterone triggers the menstruation and the beginning of the next cycle. Second is uterine cycle, which describes the changes in the uterine endometrium. Uterine cycle can be divided into three phases, that is menstruation, proliferative phase and secretory phase. Menstruation is the first phase of uterine cycle. The menstruation flow indicates that a woman has not become pregnant. Eumenorrhea indicates normal, regular periods that last for 2 to 5 days with average blood of 35 to 40 ml. Proliferative phase is the second phase of the uterine cycle. Uterine lining grows and proliferate during this phase. Ovarian follicles secrete increasing amounts of estradiol. Estrogen indicates the formation of new layer of endometrium in the uterus known as proliferative endometrium. Secretory phase is the final phase of the uterine cycle and it corresponds to the luteal phase of ovarian cycle. During this phase, the corpus luteum produces progesterone that plays a major role in making the endometrium receptive for implantation of the blastocyst and supportive to the early pregnancy. In this topic of reproductive cycles in vertebrates, we have seen what is reproduction and types of reproduction, including asexual and sexual reproduction. Then we had a glimpse of the process of fertilization in vertebrates, that is from fish to amphibians. We have gone through the types of reproductive cycles in vertebrates and learned that there are two different types of cycles such as estrus and menstrual cycle. We have also covered the role of hormones and its impact on the reproductive cycles in vertebrate animals.